Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4 are just a month away. I'll actually be streaming my initial blind playthrough of that directly here on this channel. You can follow the links that I'll post down below, or just find it in the live tab of this channel. It's already been scheduled. Set yourself a notification and we can all play it together blind on launch day. It's going to be a ton of fun. Leading up to that long pending release date, there's been many newsletter updates. I haven't really covered those as they've come out. There's not usually a ton of new information in them, and there's plenty of other channels that jump on that stuff. But a little over 2.5 years ago, we had the massive Spamton Sweepstakes. That was just too absurd to pass up. I felt I needed to cover that. There's a full 2-hour video of me trying to go through absolutely everything that was a part of that presentation and that website. But now, in the most recent newsletter, Toby directly pointed people back towards that sweepstakes page. Hey, unrelated to all that, do you remember how I mentioned there was an alternate ending to the Spamton Sweepstakes? Well, I also finally remembered I said that. So we've updated the Spamton Sweepstakes website to feature the alternate ending. After you give that a gander, it might be a good idea to check out the rest of the website for old time's sake too. I only consider anything in the game itself to be canon, so there's nothing critically important on there. But looking around the site itself sure is a lot of fun. So this alone puts the whole thing in a bit of a weird space. While what we see in this website may not be strictly canon, that's not to say there aren't going to be hints or breadcrumbs of general ideas that might end up showing up in the full game. And so as users have been hard at work trying to compile all of this information and discover everything new, I wanted to make a follow-up to my sweepstakes video going through everything that's been added and creating a little bit more hype leading up to that Chapter 3 and 4 launch. Basically, for the month of June, that's all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna live and breathe Deltarune, and I'm just gonna be pumping out videos on all the fun little secrets and Easter eggs and weird routes and whatever new things come up as a result. This video is brought to you by the upcoming game Heroes of the Seven Islands, being published by Two Left Thumbs. It's a party-based, turn-based RPG adventure, so immediately fans of Deltarune might have an entry point there, but this one is more of an open world style adventure. There is a free demo available over on Steam, and this is immediately where I fell in love with the game. The developer is drawing everything by hand, scanning it in and coloring it. It gives it a very distinct, cutesy, charming little appeal. And if those reviews are anything to go off of, it seems to be connecting well with people. I love the handcrafted quality of it all, and I know you'll enjoy it if you give it a chance. I'll have links to that down below. Give that demo a try, and if you want to support me, some indie developers, and this channel at large, then be sure to give that game a wishlist. It helps us out a lot. On the original sweepstakes page, we still have the Spamton Value Network finale, or now see the alternate path, Spamton Silence, which we have a fully new private video that was uploaded only 13 days ago, but remains unlisted. Originally in that charity campaign, when you were contributing funds, you could either vote to free or silence Spamton. Freedom is the one that won out, and a few years later here, we're being shown what the alternate silence ending would have been. The silencing Spamton video is just under 3 minutes. Spamton begins to present the Spamton carbine knife before he's interrupted by the guys at Fan Gamer, continuing on from their stream, saying they assumed that freedom would have won, and now that the silence vote has taken place, they weren't quite sure what to do. Spamton gives some pleas for attention, but they seem to be unaware of him, talking over his cries for help.
We just kind of assumed you do the...
Vote for what?
Freedom.
What did they vote for? Freedom?
He's gone. You voted to remove Spamton, and that's what happens.
Remove Spamton.
Goes away.
What are they talking about?
In Chapter 2, if you agree to transfer the store with Spamton, then there's this top to bottom scroll, transitioning from full color to grayscale, along with the disappearance of Spamton. Then a slowed down version of dial tone, the track for Spamton's shop, is left playing, with the scene transitioning in a very similar way to how it does in-game, this time from the bottom up, but still changing to grayscale and eliminating Spamton. The fourth wall is broken, and the actor, Wayne Radio TV, implores that he's just an actor, not the real Spamton.
No, Wayne. I'm not Spamton, I swear. I'm just an impersonator. I'm an actor.
Conceptually, the Spamton Value Network, all the static on the screen eventually cutting to a blue screen, all harkening back to an era of analog TV. Obviously, this also comes across when we see the static behind Spamton's eyes, but it's long been theorized with the ending point of Chapter 2 that Chapter 3 will then be set in a TV world. It was never so much a theory and seemingly more of a given, and it was absolutely confirmed through that original Switch 2 promotion. The theories always had more to do with which characters will enter this dark world, where exactly they'll visit, and who they'll encounter, likely including Mike, who Spamton recurringly refers to, as well as Tina, likely as in Antenna, who we learn about through the original Spamton Sweepstakes. So tying in those TV-based visuals and themes in this revival of the sweepstakes, to me, seems to indicate that we maybe haven't seen the end of Spamton's story, and we may get to better understand both him and his friendship, relationship / rivalry with Mike, all then further explored in these upcoming chapters. Looking back at the silent Spamton page itself, the top banner is now grayed out, the celebratory gifts and balloons all grayed out with Spamton removed. The dollar values on these remain the same, but the Silence and Freedom's positions have been flipped. And this very up-tempo track has been replaced with a very ominous rendition of Deltarune. When looking at the available prizes, all of the text has been removed. You can still open them up, look around at grayscale versions of them in this light box view, but there's no surrounding information with them anymore. This includes Spamton's fate, something that had previously advertised, "Let's buy Spamton's silence, permanently. Let's get him out of this place once and for all. Spamton's fate is in our hands." Which is instead now entirely blank. There's not even a hidden text. I pulled the Fate PNG into a different program, played around with contrasts. There doesn't appear to be anything there. The auction house section is entirely missing. This banner still takes you to deltarune.com/code, same as before. Previously in Noel's blog, we knew that there were 26 pages. And now, when you follow that code link, we are advertised as having 40 pages. So people knew to go looking for 14 new pages. The "Take Me Back Home Please" link at the bottom of the page has been replaced with "What's Next?" And in the Silence page, this has been made substantially larger. This new link on the standard sweepstakes page takes us to /chapter 3, which just has text in the center that reads "not applicable." I'll circle back to this shortly, as it kind of leads to its own path through this quasi-ARG, while the grayed out Silence page takes us to the old link /RAMB. This link was previously available. By inspecting this shirt merch, Scrap Heap is how that link was first discovered. Clicking the door in Ramb opens up this lounge area, to which a brand new link has been added to the bar, instead opening ROMB, wrong. Which kind of shatters my previous theory that maybe this was something AM broadcasting. Now Romb, I have no idea. Romb opens up a page with a set of double doors. Double doors have been incredibly significant to Deltarune. In Chapter 1, when first accessing the Dark World, you proceed through a set of double doors. And when Chapter 2 was released, the art for the library was updated to now be a set of double doors as well. And obviously, this mysterious bunker south of town has a pair of double doors. The header for this webpage: "No one will shed a tear for him." Clicking these doors, there is the heavy sound of doors opening, a pause, and the appearance of this text: "If only you had the blank, your luck might have gone another way. No blank, no crystal." There's no hidden text or anything in this page to be highlighted or shown off in any other way, but there are interactable elements hidden in these two blank spaces. Clicking either one makes the same sound effect. The crystals are something that you acquire in-game by defeating the secret bosses, and Sham has revealed to us how significant these crystals will be. Upon giving the 2 shadow crystals to Sham, he tells us about the shadow mantle, something that will be required to gain that 3rd shadow crystal. However, he's unable to find it, and states, unfortunately, without the shadow mantle, at 2 you may remain. Fate is approaching, and it is not on your side. It doesn't necessarily make sense with the spacing scene here, but it could very easily be if only you had the shadow mantle. Your luck might have gone another way. No shadow mantle, no crystal. So potentially this is a hint or a message coming from this potential 3rd secret boss, or from Sham. During that pause after the door is open but before the text, there is actually something on screen that's moving around. While it's not visible for very long, this is moving through the screen in a figure 8 pattern. People were able to inspect the web page and found that this is just referred to as square.png. It's 96 by 96 pixels. That's all we know about that. If you manage to click on this moving box, it will very briefly change the header to "You can never defeat us, let's rumble," with the box then moving out the top of the screen, and instead redirecting you to Chapter 3. I'm heavily assuming that these doors will be some sort of access point. Based on where the latest Dark World has been opened, I don't know if it makes sense for that to be in Toriel's house, but this could instead be a set of double doors in the Dark World that lead to the 3rd secret boss fight. The sound effect when clicking these missing words is the same one that plays when clicking that invisible box. Some very astute fans realized that this quote in the heading actually comes from Link's Awakening, and this new sweepstakes sound effect seems to be something very similar from that same scene. Now, this goes beyond just a passing reference. Toby seems to have very intentionally, thematically linked these 2 games. Which, yeah, pardon the pun there. This final battle is happening inside the giant windfish egg, and the entirety of Link's Awakening is a dream, with the final boss being against the last of the nightmares Link has been battling throughout the game. We were born of nightmares to take over this world. We made the windfish sleep endlessly. If the windfish doesn't wake up, this island will never disappear. We would have been the masters of this place, but you had to come here and disrupt our plans. You can never defeat us. Let's rumble. I don't know exactly what Toby is cooking here, but he's seemingly giving us a lot of information. Going back to that main page, the new What's Next link takes us to /chapter 3. All there is to see here is the text "not applicable." For comparison's sake, if you go to the Chapter 2 link, it just says "applicable." But then rather surprisingly, Chapter 1 again reads "not applicable." The links for Chapters 1 through 4 all have these ellipses in their header. When on the Chapter 3 page, if you hold down the left arrow key, after approximately 6 seconds, the word "but" will slide in. Chapter 4 initially appears blank before you see this stray red pixel in the center. And you know I have a thing for stray pixels seen around in Deltarune. It all ties together, I swear! The lone pixel for Chapter 4 is itself also a link, which then takes us to Chapter 4/message, which at first appears to be the same page. However, by highlighting things, we can see a sequence of additional links down below, either linking to e.mp3 or m.mp3. If anyone wanted a quick visual representation of how that's being laid out, here is the sequence. Seeing me kind of makes me think of Agent Smith.
Me too.
I don't mean that as an actual theory or anything, I'm just making a connection. But also, meme is a thing, which maybe ties in with Spamton a little bit. The count per row is 10, 9, and 7, which actually matches the distribution of letters on a standard QWERTY keyboard. There are 10 in the top row, then 9, then 7. If you only look at the letters that would correspond with M, you will end up with TYUO, AHK, and N. which are the letters specifically needed to type out thank you. Following the lead of this small little ARG, if you replace message in the URL with thank you, we are taken to yet another new page. With the header, how long did it take her to smile? And the main text of the page simply reading thank you. Interestingly, when this was first made available, it actually presented two fields to which you could input text. Entering incorrect information brought up unknown contact, which was meant to direct people towards entering an email address. It took roughly a day to have the proper payoff for this. It only worked if you entered an email that was already registered to the Deltarune newsletter. And if you entered something random in the second field, you would first be told, "She never smiled?" answering the question seen in the header, which would then be followed up by an entirely blank email. If you entered a number, then you would be emailed that number. People are still not 100% clear why it attached values in different ways for some users, and it's heavily theorized that the whole thing shut down once someone got it correct, but the community still isn't really sure what that number was or who got it. And a change up from the usual newsletter format, there are two blanks in the unsubscribe text at the bottom. Again, no one has really figured out what that is for. Not entirely sure how to interpret that. It's really hard to unpack when there's no longer really access to it. I guess I'm a little late to the party, so I had to look up footage from another YouTuber, YouTube Julian, but with an X instead of a U. So shout out to Julian. Looks like he does a good job of covering all the latest things coming out across new newsletters and speculation and theories and things. So, if you're always looking for more Deltarune content, yeah, throw him a bone. Check out his stuff. Thank you, Julian, for covering things so early on there. Now all we have access to is that plain thank you page. But going back a step to the chapter 4/message page, where we have the 26 individual links here. E is a very short whooshing sound, with the full clip lasting 6 seconds. M is again 6 seconds, but instead starts blank and ends with a sound. Upon recording the two sound effects, first E and then M, it's clear that they are just reversed versions of one another. This is made extra apparent when just one of them has been reversed, and then lining them two up, amplifying them to see their spectrograms together. While it was initially set to come out alongside these two chapters, Chapter 5 is being saved for a later date, but there is still a Chapter 5 link to visit. The header for this is back, and we are presented with a sequence of 5 numbers, presumably representing the 5 chapters. 1 is minuscule and hidden within the background. 2 appears to be a little bigger, a regular size. 3 is largely faded out. 4 smaller, not as small as 1. And 5 is kind of a middle size. These sizes could very directly just be a representation of how large those chapters are. 1 is the smallest, 2 is quite big, 3 is expected to be about the same size, 4 a little bit smaller. And if I'm assuming the size of these numbers is so directly representative of their chapters, then I would have to assume the brightness is the same. I can't really say why 1 would be blacked out entirely, why 3 would be mostly blacked out but still a little bit visible. It's not like 1 had an extreme emphasis on darkners or the dark world relative to 2 being all lighteners and light world. But there could be a layer deeper to it than that we're not quite ready for yet. While the 1 is only a piece of text, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are links. 4 simply takes you to that chapter 4 page. 2, 3, and 5 are all audio links again. 2 is D.mp3, 3 is MA.mp3, and 5 is H.mp3. First looking at 2, which is D. This D.MP3 clip is a 6-second slice of the soundtrack that plays during the Snowgrave/Weird route when confronting Birdley. This collection of chapter markers and the presentation of applicable, not applicable could be hints towards how the larger Weird route will play out. It had no role in Chapter 1. 2 is being very directly connected to that confrontation with Birdley, with the Chapter 2 page also saying applicable, Chapter 3 being masked in shadow and presented as not applicable but, and the sound effect for this one, MA.MP3, ends up being that same sound effect that plays when clicking the floating invisible infinity box and when clicking those blanks in this text, which very much could just be a shorthand for mantle. To me, suggesting that Chapter 3 won't have its own continuation of the Weird route, but instead will be significant for paving the way towards how that will continue on in Chapter 4. With things like the Shadow Mantle and that secret third boss, who we're kind of assuming is going to be Mike, all tying into that alternate narrative. Carrying on to the next link following the number 5. Sometimes analyzing leitmotifs makes me feel like I just know nothing about music whatsoever. I am having the hardest time picking this out myself. But I've seen this user on Twitter, Boondoggle, and a couple others make the comparison between H.MP3 and the hometown leitmotif heard in songs like A Town Called Hometown. If anyone can point me to or describe a more direct comparison between the two, I would appreciate it. I don't always struggle this hard, but I'm not really hearing this one. Jumping all the way back to this link that takes us to /code, something that has existed before. We have the same link of clues that takes us to egg, again, something that existed before. But as I pointed out in that old video, it's a fully grayscale version of things, with the header no longer being visible. Similar to how perhaps a goner would be presented in this series. And again tying into the way that both in-game and the sweepstakes, Spamton transitions to this gray setting and himself being removed from it. All of this was covered in that previous video, so I'll instead just point out the new link of Secret Cats, which takes us to deltarune.com/rain, a fully new link. We still have the Welcome to Holiday Girl 1225's Games, Secrets, Glitches, Theories blog. Everyone's heard of snow days, but did anyone else ever have rain days? I swear, one day it was pouring so hard it sounded like someone was jumping on the roof of the house. So, my mom called school and made them cancel, just so I wouldn't have to walk over. Like, come on mom, a little water never hurt anyone, except maybe for deep-sea cave divers. Sorry. At least because of that, my friend would come over, without an umbrella. Why? She was totally soaked. We had to put 3 of my mom's hair dryers on full blast for like 30 minutes. At least we got to use the dryer to make melty cheese crackers. Anyways, on days where it rains, nothing was better than playing cat petters. Specifically, the mini-games you can play with your cats. They were all ridiculous, and every one of them had these super silly-rific names, like Jongler or something. What does that mean? I remember being really into one of the games when I was little. I can't remember the name because it was complete nonsense. Sorry. But it was the one that was like an endless cave, if that makes sense. I even made a guide to the rarities of the different cats you could get to raise your score. I still have the text file, although it's just named b.text. Really helpful, me. Chances: 80% normal, 15% blue aura, 4% rock and roll, 0% angel wing, 0.0000% super holy angel wing. I sort of feel like there were more, though. Like, one time I remember getting a cat and it actually lowered how many points I had. And then of course I died immediately, so I couldn't get a picture or anything. And of course, no one else has ever seemed to see this. Actually, I get the feeling someone else I know has seen it, but I just know that even if I asked them, I probably wouldn't get a straight answer. Ugh. Super fun fact. On a related note, these same games even make a cameo in Cat Petters the RPG, which, like everything good, is kind of a ripoff of Dragon Blazers if I'm being honest. Okie dokie, let my bias show for a second there. You guys should really play it though. As usual, if anyone thinks they can find any proof, try it yourself and let me know. P.S. about my friend, she came over because I said I was going to play Cat Petters, but she thought that meant I was just going to pet her. What kind of game would that even be? So, I just made up a cat named after her in the game and made it play metal music on the music box. I'll try not to corrupt that one. I still had to pet her a little so she wouldn't go home. A few quick things jump out at me from this post. The entire page is titled Rain, there's a bunch of mention of rain and talking of coming without an umbrella. This could tie back to the memory puzzle scene in Undertale, where you need to deliver an umbrella to this statue that's being rained on. Or at the very least has water drizzling down onto it. This is the first instance in the game where Asriel's musical theme is heard. Or, with a fun value between 90 and 100 in Undertale, you can find Goner Kid waiting on a dock by themselves. Have you ever thought about a world where everything is exactly the same, except you don't exist? Everything functions perfectly without you? The thought terrifies me. But if you instead bring the Goner Kid an umbrella, but it's not raining. You know, that does make me feel a little better about this. Thank you. Please forget about me. And if you talk again, please don't think about this anymore. But I didn't listen. I never stopped thinking about it. This could so easily spin off into a whole theory video of its own and is something I have talked about in prior videos. But the idea of there being two different worlds, even just something as simple as that thank you text being there, I never know when I'm reading into things too far or not enough with these games, and I absolutely love that about them. It's interesting that Noelle simply titled it b.text, because that's the same hyper-simplified naming format that's being used for all these audio files around the site. The 0% chance angel wings, or super holy angel wings, are very much going to call to mind the final form god of hyperdeath, Asriel. A bit of imagery that was played around with further and somewhat bastardized through Spamton Neo. And before moving on from all of this, Noelle mentions having a friend come over to play the game with them. They're clearly someone furry because it took 30 minutes to dry out after the rain. And suggesting playing Cat Petters made this person think that they were going to get pet. So it seems very, very likely that this is all referring to Catty. But this isolated line, I get the feeling someone else I know has seen it, but I just know that even if I asked them, I probably wouldn't get a straight answer. Which, with the use of they, them as pronouns, and how unlikely it is to get a straight answer, I believe this would be referring to Chris. So now, venturing into the next link in this chain, down below here, it takes us to /rarecats. With the header 0 points at the top, this dancing cat gif ping-pongs around the screen, kind of like those DVD placeholder screens. Clicking on the cat directly earns you points and a new one spawns in. It will literally keep track of your points as you click these cats. The glowing ones earn you 50 points, the plain ones earn you 10. There's also a glowing fiery one worth 250 that strikes a bit of a metal chord. There are two different ones with angel wings, one of which is kind of plain and dark, and the other one has this light box around it, maybe kind of having a little bit of a lightener and a darkener angel. Regardless of which one you get and click on, spawns in this stained glass window, something very much like you would see in a church, which again is going to be tying into the symbolism seen with the wings, and is of course all reminiscent of the angel referred to in the Legend of the Deltarune. These of course all directly match up to those being reported by Noelle in her b.text. I've seen people claim they saw a few other ones. I never got any more than these. I have no idea what triggers this. Maybe it's the amount of cats you click or the points you earn. This face, previously teased in Chapter 2, will kind of do a bit of a jump scare. It then immediately boots you out to the main sweepstakes page. You can navigate back to this point. It'll have you back at 0 points total, and you can begin playing again. This face jumping out at you is presumably the cat that lowered your score and then you died immediately. But people have been able to find the file and now know that it is titled Cat009. There is an insane amount to unpack with that information. We know from the unused elemental types in Deltarune that cat and puppet have a shared value of 6. They're these diametrically opposed elements that the game treats as the same thing, immediately linking together Spamton and this cat, beyond just having the pink and yellow eyes. Spamton tells you about Mike when you ask him about friends. The original appearance of this face was Image Friend. And this has now been linked to the Japanese bobtail cat, a breed seen as being lucky that brings people prosperity and happiness. The luckiest of all is the tricolor variation of this breed, referred to as Mike. That statue of a cat with the paw in the air is the beckoning cat. It's an interpretation of this Mike bobtail. We know how much Toby loves Japanese culture, and it's entirely possible that all this time we've been reading Mike. It was instead referring to this Mike cat. It's all coming together. Both types of rare angel cat spawn in the same image with the same link, either of which will take you to /windows, which by my count has 51 windows. And the header, aren't you forgetting something? And no, I already told you that I wasn't going to. Quit sending me mixed messages, Toby. These windows have many different variations of the same words in different orders. Where would forest lost grow the? The grow lost wood forest where? The where grow wood forest lost. Grow where the lost forest would. Lost where forest would the grow. And many other such iterations. Any of these are going to take us to the dog check room, a fail-safe link. The only window that looks different has a slightly different circular shape here at the top, one that looks quite a bit like an egg. By my count, this is the 36th in the sequence, which is the only one with the correctly unscrambled link, lost where the forest would grow, which has the header roots in all capitals and takes us to this lone blue tree, slowly floating up and down. A lone tree is immediately going to make me think of the secret trees in which we talk to someone we assume is Gaster, giving us the gift of the egg. The texture behind this tree has been found to be the exact same one, image depths, seen in the creation sequence at the beginning of Deltarune. I have no idea how people figured this out, but image depths is actually created using a snapshot of some water. A section of it is then isolated, it's duplicated, reversed and inverted to face inwardly on itself, and then is duplicated and refracted in a way to create that final effect. The fact that this is tying into the water in a very specific way maybe actually lends a little bit of credibility to some of my own theorizing I've done on the upcoming chapters. This tree has a link to /window, different from /windows. Clicking this plays a single note. Clicking it for a fourth time does take you to /window. Maybe meaning this is something that'll tie into Chapter 4? Hard to say. A quick reminder of something I covered in the original sweepstakes video, the Spamton engraved wedding ring has a link that takes you to Damn You Tina. The header delete this. When you go further in, you're early. There's a bunch of static on the screen, the noise of static, and hidden down towards the bottom of it are these two squares. These take you to a plain blue page with the header aren't you forgetting something in all capitals? Which is a message we are now seeing again, both on the window page and Windows. With the way this is all tying into that tree and the egg, then I guess the thing you're forgetting is potentially the egg? Now we're presented with something very similar on the window page, but this time rather than scrambled words, it is just a scrambled mess of letters. This time found as the 18th out of 51 total. Half of the 36 we just saw, 36 obviously being 6 times 6, 18 being divisible by 6. Now while I'm playing around with the numerology of all of this, 6 is the most important number for Gaster, but 9 is something that Toby also plays around with. It is the inverse of 6. Both 18 and 36 are also divisible by 9. So he's very clearly playing around with these two numbers here. Just to keep this train going, I want to ascribe some sort of meaning to the number 51, and the best I could come up with is that it's 3 times 17. We have our 3 heroes, those being represented by the 3 points of the Deltarune, and entry 17 obviously being important to Gaster. 5 plus 1 is 6. Maybe that's a bit too far, but it's hard not to pay attention to literally any use of 6 in these games. So, returning to the 18th in this sequence of windows, the unscrambled version of this takes you to The Poor Children. This is a blank page with the header Therapy. You're actually able to draw in this page, and there's a certain limit of squares before they start disappearing. I just know someone out there is going to count the total number of actual pixels you can draw and draw some sort of important correlation there. I'm not going to do that. It's going to take way too long, but it's kind of neat to play around with. After you draw long enough, you're eventually able to start coloring in a hidden image, which ends up being that tree that you can find the egg through in chapter 1 and 2. This is a clickable link that takes you back to /egg, seemingly being the end of this particular chain. I believe that covers all of the new links and hidden little secrets that have been added to the sweepstakes page. Be sure to check out Heroes of the 7 Islands. I will have links to everything down below. There's that free demo. Be sure to add it to your wish list. It'll be coming out later this year. I'm so unbelievably excited for what comes next. Be sure to set yourself a notification for that day 1 stream. If chapter 3 is as big as chapter 2, then potentially I'll end up splitting it up into 2 streams, one on the 4th and the 5th, but that's a call I'll make depending on how long it takes to play through chapter 3 the day of. Thank you guys for sticking around, for theorizing with me for all these years. It's absolutely wild to think we're about to double the amount of chapters we have access to, and I'm gonna have a ton of fun unpacking it all throughout June. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.